God created man in his own image. So we're just talking. We don't know what it means. Yes, my brother. Mm. Oh, okay. That's according to him. Yes, my brother, Michael. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah. Like he said, his characteristics. First of all, men were created with the ability to procreate, which is to reproduce. Men were created with perfect memory and the likes. That's basically what we mean, like my brother has said, by men, God creating men in his own image. So, So the object of education, which is the great object of life, is restoring man in the image of his maker, bring him back to the perfection in which he was created, promote the development of body, mind, and soul that the divine purpose in his creation might be realized. This was to be the work of redemption, which is the object of education, like I mentioned. Love, the basis of creation and of redemption, is the basis of true education. This is made plain in the law that God has given as the guide of life. The first and great commandment, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy strength and with all thy mind, which we find in Luke 10:27. To love God with the whole strength and mind and heart means the highest development of every power. Since us women, we didn't create ourselves. There is a higher power which created us, which is God. So there is no way that we can live those kind of lives which are self-sufficient. You cannot. So in most of the things, actually everything that you need, you can get from the higher power, which is God. So when you don't love God with all your heart, your mind, your strength, there is no way that you are going to go and seek. Then you won't get that knowledge that you're supposed to get. You won't receive true education because you're not interested in knowing the things of God. To love God, it means that in the whole being, the body, the mind, as well as the soul, the image of God is to be restored. The second commandment, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, we find in Matthew 22, verse 39. The law of love calls for the devotion of body, mind, and soul to the service of God and our fellow men. And this service, while making us a blessing to others, brings the greatest blessings to ourselves. Unselfishness underlies all true development. Through unselfish service, we receive the highest culture of every faculty. More and more fully do we become the partakers of the divine nature. Since God is the source of all true knowledge, it is, as we have seen, the first object of education to direct our minds to this own revelation of himself. Adam and Eve received knowledge through direct communication with God, and they learned of him through his works. All created beings, things in their original perfection, were an expression of the thought of God. Nature still speaks of a creator. The Holy Scriptures are the perfect standard of truth, and as such should be given the highest place in education. We are incapable of interpreting aright in our fallen state with weakened powers and restricted vision. So, I had mentioned that we're living in a world where it's like the blind are just leading the blind. People are being misled. We are being taught things which are not correct. But if you want to pursue true education, like we said, it's the one that educates the mind, the soul, and the body, every aspect of life. It's the one that gives you character development. It's not just about what you know. It's also your actions that tell us that you are truly educated. Because we've got people who are educated, but it's like their characters say otherwise. So one way to see that a person is truly educated is through the way in which they live their lives, So we are incapable of interpreting, like I said, in our fallen state with weakened powers and restricted vision. Men's opinions are dangerous. Education is filled with men's opinions and observations. Like I had mentioned, children in schools, they learn about spontaneous generations, which is almost like the same as evolution. To obtain education worthy of the name, we must receive a knowledge of God, the Creator, and of Christ, the Redeemer, as they are revealed in the sacred world. Every human being created in the image of God is endowed with a power akin to that of the Creator. Individuality, power to think and to do. That is, it is the work of true education to develop that power, the power that all of us have, which is individuality and the power to think and to do. To train the youth to be thinkers and not mere reflectors of other men's thought, of which we have that a lot today. We've got youth who are just reflectors of other men's thought. Like, I'll give an example with our gadgets, like our phones. So, there's a lot going on in those gadgets of ours, the phones that we have. We are just, it's like whatever we're doing, whatever we're watching, you know how it is important to feed the mind with the right things. But in this world, it is in such a way that whatever it is that we watch, we become continuously, we create patterns of continuity in engaging in that kind of soapy or whatever. No wonder people are glued to their phones today, of which those phones, there's a lot going on. They got a lot of lies and things that are mentioned that we, even Christians of nowadays, we follow, of which if you want to develop your mind, you don't have to follow those things, because that is just men's opinions. That is what they think. And you cannot base your life on what other men says, because people are saying a lot in those gadgets, of which most of the things are not even true. In today's world, most men have become reflections of other men's thought, like I said. We think, act, and do according to the standard that has been set for us by the world. We feed our minds with what the world is giving us, which is not even true education, which is destroying our mental well-being and further disqualifying us from thinking beyond what we see. Instead of confining their study to that which men have written or said, let students be directed to the sources of truth, to the vast fields open for research in nature and revelation. The mind will expand and strengthen if they are allowed to contemplate of the great facts of duty and destiny. Instead of educated weaklings Institutions of learning may send forth men strong to think and to act, men who are masters and not slaves of circumstances, men who possess breadth of mind, clearness of thought, and the courage of their convictions. Such an education provides mental discipline and provides physical training. It strengthens the characters so that truth and uprightness are not sacrificed to selfish desire or worldly ambition. It fortifies the mind against evil. Every motive and desire are brought into conformity to the great principles of right. I'd like to read Proverbs chapter 5, verse 22. I think this verse was also read during the service. It reads as follows: His own iniquities shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sins. As people who are living in this world of today, do you think that if we continue in our sinful ways, we can receive that true education, that harmonious, development of the mind, body, soul, and all that? Like, if we continue in our sinful ways, there is no way we can access that kind of great wisdom, that kind of great knowledge that is in store for us. Because sin has a way of taking more than the sinner can give. A person may start at the beginning. It's okay, like they feel like it's okay, it's not that deep, I'm not addicted to doing this. And as time goes by, you actually become a slave of that sin. So as somebody who is now a slave of that sin, who is living under the control of something else, do you think that such a person is capable of actually, maybe if actually they repent, but the purpose of sin is actually to blind us from the truth. It's to actually, redirect us away from God. As a sinner, you find that when we are talking about true education, which has to do with God, educating everything that needs to be educated in you, you start hating it. You start feeling like, I'm not interested in hearing about God and his wisdom because of that particular sin. So I can say that sin pushes you away from finding out the great wisdom and the knowledge that God has in store for you. So, as perfection of his character is dwelt upon, the mind is renewed and the soul is recreated in the image of God. What education can be higher than this? What can equal it in value? I'm sure in our lives we've met people who are so smart, so intelligent. They get good grades in school, but when you look at the way they live, you can just see that, you are just repelled by their behavior. You are just discouraged from being around them. What I'm trying to say is that we learn what we learn in higher institutions, and that have nothing to do with God, and some of the things just push us away from God. But that kind of education, the secular, the worldly education, does not actually give us what Christian education gives us. It does not train our character. It does not develop our character. Any person who is educated in terms of, the world, in terms of the worldview, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have the best character in the world. Higher than the highest human and rich is God's ideal for his children. Godliness, God-likeness is the goal to be reached. He who cooperates with divine purpose in imparting to the youth a knowledge of God and molding the character into harmony with His, does a high and noble work. As he awakens the desire to reach God's ideal, he presents an education as high as the heaven and as broad as the universe. An education that cannot be completed in this life, but will be continued in the life to come. By mingling of evil with good, the mind becomes confused. Mental and spiritual powers benumbed. You become weak. No longer could men appreciate the good that God so freely bestows because of sin. So is there any addition, subtraction from what I've said? Does anybody have something to say, something to add, any comment? If not, then this is the end of my presentation. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you very much, Trish. What do we say for Trish? Amen. She has the courage to stand in front, which is more than I can say for many of you. Yeah, if I was to ask some of you to come in front, a panic attack might ensue. So it's not easy to stand in front. I think it takes courage. And I like to honor such people who have that courage, because we are very few. When God created us, we were a limited edition. Yeah, some of you, this upper, you know yourself. Now, Trish assumed everyone has read the book Education. So when she was reading the quotations, she was saying them without mentioning where they're coming from. She assumed everyone here is a very good Adventist. Not all of them are good Adventists, Trish. So some may not necessarily understand where the quotations were coming from. Before we get into the short presentation I have, do you have any questions or any contributions to what Trish has said? Sister Trace, where is the snarler? Okay. Do we have any contributions, any questions? Questions about what has been presented? Or we were half asleep, it was difficult to even have questions. Okay. There's a hand? Oh, yes, my elder. The image. Yes. Okay. You will be like. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. That's a very solid question from the elder. Such a question can only come from an elder. You need to be thinking to ask such a question. Anything else? Anything else? Before we get into the next session, though, we will have a chorus. We can have a chorus of the choristers choosing. Then we'll start with where the elder has left.
I will sing hymn number 111 in our local hymns. We'll take on the first three verses. No, not one. friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. None else could heal our soul diseases. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus, Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. No friend like him is so high and holy. No, not one. No, not one. And yet no friend is so meek and lowly. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus, Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. There's not another that is not near us. No, not one. No, not one. No night so dark that His love can cheer us. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus, Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus, Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one.
Thank you very much for that song. The brother who was playing the keyboard was really in it. Thank you very much, bro. Thank you very much for that. We start from the question that the elder had asked. Yes, the image of God. Man was created in the what? The image of God, and he was supposed to have what? The likeness of God. Mwalu, you want to ask? You want to answer the question? Or you have a question on top of the question? All right, yes, what is the question? Mm-hmm. Philosophies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When it came to delivery of the children of Israel, he didn't use his Egyptian military to deliver the children of Israel from there to Canaan. How do we balance up? It seems like this secular world is also a part to influence us, to shape us who we are today.
Okay.
How do we harmonize the two?
Okay, thank you very much. Question. Starting from what the elder asked, elder, there's still a raging debate on what it means when someone says the image of God, or what Genesis 1 verse 27 means when it says the image of God. However, the Hebrew word that is translated as image is the word selem. What it means is resemblance, physical resemblance. Are we there? Physical resemblance. So when the Bible says in the image of God, it means physically we resemble. We don't look exactly like him, but we resemble God. And the likeness now talks about the character. So the likeness is not necessarily the physical attributes, but rather the character, how we behave. So before the devil could deceive Eve, she first had to deceive her of the fact that, deceive her and rob her of her rightful place by telling her, you are not like God, but I know something that can make you like him. Are we there? And that's the same thing that the devil does to us now. The devil does to us now what he did to Eve. He says, you are not a child of God, but I know what can make you a child of God. Are we there? So Eve was already like God, but she was not content with being like God. And you see, to be fair, oftentimes I think we are very hard on Eve. How many of us have seen a snake talking? Snakes were never meant to talk. Are we there? And you read from the story of redemption, you'll find that the snake, as it was then, is not the way it is now. Are we there? But all the same, a snake was never meant to what? To talk. When she was able to see the snake talk, and the snake was able to attribute the fact that it was able to talk simply because it had eaten of the fruit, she thought, imagine that the snake can talk. What will become of me when I eat? Are we there? And so that is why she was able to be deceived the way she was deceived. And also just adding on that, I wanted to read a quotation. This is from Education, page 17, paragraph 1. It says, every human being created in the image of God is endowed with power akin to that of the Creator. Individuality, number 1. Power to think and do. These 3 things. The men in whom this power is developed are the men who bear responsibilities, who are leaders in enterprise, and who influence character. It is the work of true education. It is the work of what? We are getting to your question. It is the work of what? True. You see, if there is true education, it means there is false education. Are we there? For there to be a counterfeit note, it means there is a real note. Are we there? It is the work of true education. Develop this power to train the youth to be thinkers and not mere reflectors of other men's thoughts. There are some people, especially in our education system in Zambia, is very flawed. Because most of these students learn how to gun, not how to understand. We know what gunning is. Kuswata. My brother there seems like he's a very serious patriot of gunning. Students these days will just memorize. Aswata, what has to come after this is this. There are certain students who, when they forget that definite article they forget everything. Because the way he mastered, the way he memorized the whole thing, the they has to be there. So when the they is missing, he forgets everything. Are we there? Now, we are being taught to be mere reflectors of other men's thoughts. Instead of being taught to what? To think. So the aim of true education is to help you develop the capacity to think and your individuality. Are we there? Moving on. He goes on to say, instead of confining their study to that which men have said or written, instead of confining your study to that which men have said or written, let students be directed to the sources of truth, to the vast fields of open research in nature and revelation. So, it is good for you to learn the secular world, but don't be confined to it. Are we there? But instead of that, or additionally, we should also be what? Led to understand something from revelation and inspiration, because that is the true source of education, or the true source of knowledge. Now, what's interesting to note is this. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of what? Life. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Now, the question is the heart that is being spoken about here, is it the pump that is in your chest? It is not. It is talking about the seat of reasoning. Are we there? Guard your mind with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. The problem is that when the Bible says this, many of us look at it and then we just pass out. We just pass over it like it is nothing. Many of us have become careless as to what we allow to enter our minds. Are we there? But here's the thing. Everything that you allow to enter your mind molds you. Because here's the thing. When you sow a thought, you will reap a what? A habit. When you sow a habit, you will reap a what? A character. When you sow a character, you will reap a what? A destiny. So your thoughts are where it all starts from. And that is why the Bible tells us, guard your mind with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of what? Life. Speaking of which, it means that even the kind of education you receive must be something you must scrutinize properly. Are we there? The kind of education you receive must be something you must scrutinize properly. Haven't we heard or haven't we seen people who went to the university and they left their faith there and came out with a degree? We have. Are we there? Why? Because of failing to guard their minds with what? With all diligence. Because out of it are the issues of what? Life. So secular education is important. And we can't undermine it. Are we there? We don't want to be so heavenly minded that we are of no earthly relevance. So you need to learn those things, but understand that the true source of education and the true source of knowledge is God. Now, moving on. I wanted to say something to the effect, or rather, to try and communicate one simple principle. Once I'm convinced that I've communicated this and I'm good to go, I can sit down. You know, there's this growing tendency of those who don't believe in God to think low of those who believe in God. I have a friend who is an atheist. Okay, he's not a friend. He's an acquaintance. Not that I'm looking down on him. But the thing is, a friend, you talk to each other on a regular basis. We don't talk anymore because of the fact that normally when we talk, we have debates and they never end well. So this brother one time tells me, do you truly believe that God created the world and everything? And I said, yes. And I asked him, what do you believe? He says, of course, it's evolution. I said, okay, that's fine. And then I said, but even evolution has loopholes. There are certain things that you can't explain. And so you use assumptions. And I said, what you call assumptions